Alright, so I've modified some of these cleats and added the shading to most of these here, and you can see I'm going ahead and I'm going to finish up a few of these, group that together. I'm going to copy and paste this shape. I've already created it once, so there's no sense in recreating the same thing. You can just kind of scale these up and delete the previous. Paste, rotate, and just keep doing this for all the shapes that you've already want to have filled in here. And you can see kind of you get that really cool effect. It's the little sculpting in there. So we previously rendered some shadows onto the back cleats, and I'm just going to finish up a couple more of those. And there we go. Back here. And one for this guy. And remember, when you're creating these shapes, you want to really make sure that you're following the contour of the lug itself. So if this is a little flatter along the side, I want to try to get that line a little flatter and then a tighter curve as it approaches the edge. And for these ones, they're pretty much cylindrical, so we can kind of have those more of a rounder shape. So we'll select the outside shapes, copy, paste in front, and then I'll grab my shapes there, divide, ungroup, and use the selection tool, and just with the shift being held down, I'll grab the parts that I want to keep and then hit delete and delete the rest. And I'll reselect these shapes here, and with the eyedropper tool, I'm going to highlight that. Forgot this one here. There we go. No stroke. You don't want it to have any black lines. And there we go. So we've rendered our cleats kind of semi-clear and added some shadows there. And we'll go next to the plate, the top portion of the plate. And basically I already offset this top edge here to give it like a little bit of a highlight edge, and this part here is going to be a window, and I'm going to have some ribs coming across there, so we'll leave that for now. And let me add some shadows here. So I'm just going to offset again about a 0.5 millimeter. Get rid of the stroke color and just change the gradient, change the gradient angle, so you start to pick up this edge. And I want this surface right here where this cleat is to look like it's moving straight through. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to clip this darker section out, and in order to do that I'm just going to drag these right over, extend them past, beyond that surface, and do that basically wherever I want that surface to be somewhat smooth with no step. I'll do that to these two front ones as well. If you make a mistake, just hit undo, Apple Z. If you want, you can select, by holding shift, you can select a few of the endpoints at the same time. Just move them all at one time. So we're almost finished here. Alright, so I've extended all of those points, and now what I'm going to do is I'm going to select the main shape. I'm going to copy, paste in front, select my shadow shape that I created on top of it, and now I'm going to cut these extra pieces off. So I'll hit divide, ungroup this, and with the selection tool and holding shift down, I'm going to select just this portion and delete the rest of it. There we go. So now we salvage that piece, and you can kind of see how the shadow now just comes and that crease just continues down. So making this cleat look like it's one surface and not containing any sort of step in that area. Alright. So now I want to make these look a little more realistic as well, this surface here. So I'm going to add like a little shadow edge here, because this actually bumps out, and as the surface, as this conical surface blends into this flatter curved surface this way, there's going to be a little crease here. So it's a soft crease. I'm just going to create kind of like this shadowed effect here, and just going to create a few lines. So let me make this a different color just so you can see what shape I'm doing. But basically, as this form kind of cuts across, I just want to hit it with a little bit of a shadow. And no fill. And if I just make this, if I fill this just as a black, then hit multiply, and maybe drop that opacity down. We're going to have to lighten this form just a tad. You can see our shape here. So there we go, we have kind of like a little shadow effect there. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to copy that and basically use the same shape. Another neat little trick, since this has a really hard edge to it, I don't really like how it's creating that hard edge, because this is basically, if you interpret this, it's coming down and then it's a hard crease right there. So what you can do is, if you select that, you can go into your effects and the feather tool under stylize. That'll allow you to kind of blend the outer edge, and feather is basically taking those pixels and fading them off. So if you reduce, let's see, 0.2, you can kind of see how it's getting, that hard edge is going away. And then once you're happy with a certain blend, you can apply that to all of them. If I take this, you basically can see how that feathered that outer edge. And just keep repeating all the previous steps. Until you're satisfied with the final shapes. What's great about these endpoints here is you can really manipulate it to best suit what you're trying to get as an effect. So it starts to really give it a nice little crease there. Let's just delete this and we'll copy this guy over. Actually, let's undo and only select this and feather that, same effect. Okay. These guys can probably get a little darker since they are in a darker area. Go all the way to 100%. So you're starting to slightly pick that up. All right. So now, once we've completed this, so there you go. Now we'll want to add a highlight to the other side. So we can take this Apple III I have set to reflect. We want to reflect it vertically, which will basically take this point, flip it to this side. You can see the preview. Hit OK, rotate, and right now it has the dark effect applied to it. We'll go ahead and, after we get this shape the way we want it, we'll go ahead and change that to a white blend. So right here we can switch the color to white, And when it's multiplied, you don't see the white, so let's fill that 100%. And maybe reduce the feather to about 6. Alright, so now we're getting a little bit of a highlight surface in there. And again, just keep repeating. And you can create all new shapes if you like, or you can use this technique of just copying and pasting the same effect and just kind of playing around with the lines. Right here we're going to probably want to add a couple more shapes just to get this looking a little more realistic around that curve. Alright, now here, slide this over and finish up with this curve here. We'll probably want to change the blend of the feathered edge a little bit softer because it is pretty hard right now, at least as far as an edge. So we'll want to simplify that a bit. So apply new effect, maybe go back to like a 6. Maybe it's even. There we go. Alright, last one. So there you go. We have some nice shadows and some nice highlights applied here. Really make this pop. So this looks a little too bright, so let's tone that down just a tad. Alright, so now you can see, let's turn off our sketch layer here. There we go, clean this up. And if I throw a background on here that's filled with, let's just fill it with red, and drop that to the back. You can really see now how if you have a red background, how these really start to kind of pop through and just look like it's transparent. And I realize all of these shapes here have a multiply added to them. So if we get rid of that multiply, the only part that multiplies is those cleat tips, because those are the only ones that we want transparent to be able to see right through. So there you have that. Let's keep that on for now, and then let's take this and offset this. So path offset, and let's do that about 2 millimeters, and we'll go outwards. And if you're not sure how far to do it, let's do 1 millimeter. You just hit preview, just to get an idea. Let's do 1.5. millimeters. There we go, kind of like that. Let's get rid of that background. Take this and let's give this another effect there. We want that to be more of a shadow up at the top. There we go, with more of a shadow up there. Alright, so let's add our carbon fiber in here since we're here right now. So in my swatches, I've already created a carbon fiber texture pattern. And you can see here, these are all, just ungroup these are all individual pieces with different blends. And you can see down here the gradient, the transparency, it's all set to full. So this is my pattern here. I dragged it into my swatches window, and what we're going to do is we want to make this a carbon fiber piece, and what you want to do is figure out what color you want that layer to be. So if you want the carbon fiber to be black, let's just go ahead and fill that piece with black. Okay, and actually let's make it red. I think I'm going to make this upper red. So we have our red, and let's add a nice gradient to this so it just looks a little better. Darken those sides up. There we go. I'm going to take the stroke off of that as well. Alright, so now what I'm going to want to do is I'm going to copy and paste in front Apple C, Apple F are my hotkeys for that. So now I have a piece on top. This is, so undo. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to make sure my fill is selected. I'm going to click on my carbon fiber repeat pattern, which fills that. So this looks a little too big as far as a pattern. I want that to be a little smaller and tighter. So I hold down, I press my scale tool, which is S, and it's going to scale around this point. And basically if you hit the key right next to the number 1, it's a little squiggly line. If you hold that and shift, keep those held down, click somewhere outside of your object, click and drag, and you can kind of see what's going to happen is that carbon fiber is going to get smaller and tighter, and it's all going to stay within that window shape that we've created. And you can keep doing this until you come up with the right size of carbon fiber. And you can always come back and redo this. So I'm going to go with more of a tighter weave. And also, I don't like this angle. If you want to change that, you hit your rotate hotkey, which for me it's R, and then you hold the squiggly line and the shift again. Hold those two down and click and drag. So hit your R, and then hold your squiggly shape without the shift, and you'll get that. And now you can curve that to whichever way you like. So there we go. I want to have more of a speed line there. Okay, so you're asking yourself, why isn't it red? So we have the red behind there. So let's just take this, and with our transparency, let's just hit multiply. Boom, there you have red carbon fiber. And you can play with the transparency to let some more of the red show through, or as much as you want. Now, this top edge here, this surface is actually kind of creased up and then tapers back down. I want to add a shadow here. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to bring this over here. Let's bring the copy of that down here. Okay, and let's fill it with just a regular color. So what I'm going to do is this edge here, I want to create a shadow. So if I copy, paste in front, and then slide this down, that top edge is the shadow edge that I want to keep. So it's not going to be too much of a shadow, it's only offset a little bit. Let me change this so you can see the two different colors here. If you select both of those and divide, ungroup, shift, let's just save that, delete the rest. Now let's make this black and a multiply to it, maybe 75% around there. And one of the tricks is this point right here matches up and aligns with another point up there. What you want to do, if you want this to snap right onto that object, you drag that point and it snaps right to that object there, and it'll be perfectly aligned. You won't have any shapes with little gaps or anything like that. So I want to make this maybe it's a little too dark right now. Just a little bit of a highlight, shadow. And then now let's add a highlight right to that edge. So with our brushes, the white brush we've created, I'm going to select this piece, copy, I'm just going to paste it here for now. Let's actually paste it up on top of this color here so you can see what's going to happen. Take the multiply off and full strength. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to go ahead and cut here and here. Let's switch those around. And let's delete that. So this part here is the lower edge of that shape. Now I'm going to add my highlight, and that's definitely a tad too thick, so let's see what 0.25 looks like. Alright, let's drag that down again, dragging on that point so it snaps in place. Now you can see what that highlight looks like. If you think it's too bright, which it might be a tad too bright, just knock down that transparency to whatever transparency you'd like. Alright, so there you go, carbon fiber red. Let's change this upper to a red color. And let's give it a gradient. There we go. Alright, so our upper is going to be red. We're going to have a black plate with some shadows and highlights, clear TPU tips, and some shadows applied to those, red carbon fiber, and there, we're pretty good to go. So let's render this TPU part here. It's going to make this black color, maybe about 50%. I'm going to change the stroke thickness to 0.25, and we'll go ahead and we'll offset, set negative 0.5 millimeters. It goes inward, and we'll grab this guy. Let's expand this object, because right now you can kind of see the edges that are curved. It's still maintaining its original shape with the hard points. So if you expand both of these objects, you'll get it so now it's perfect to what you want. And I'm just going to add a gradient to this guy. there's our gradient. And we're going to want to catch like this edge as a highlight point. So I'm just going to drag and get that highlight happening up here. I'm going to select this piece. I'm just going to take the stroke off of this guy. I'm going to select the eyedropper tool, select the base, take the stroke off, and then with our gradient tool, I'm just going to click and drag in the direction that I want that highlight. And it all depends on where you click and where you let go for your drag. Alright, so now you have this shape and kind of this little concave area, and you can play with the gradient over here as well, so you get the right amount of shadow and highlight. Same for this. If we want a little bit more shadow, less of a highlight, you can very well do that. Now this looks pretty flat. It doesn't look like there's any contour to this synthetic material here, so if we offset, you can offset this by 1 millimeter, and basically if we pick the same color, get rid of the outline, because the outline doesn't make it look real. So right now it's a compound path, so these are grouped together. I'm going to ungroup them. Get rid of that shape that's under there for some reason. Just maintaining the black line. So we have this shape here. It has, we want to get rid of the second dark edge. Let's make this a little bit brighter. And with our gradient tool, just kind of hit that like that. Let's play with this. Just a tad too dark. You can also double click. There we go. It looks like it's kind of creased in there, kind of pressed in, which the material will actually in fact do. And again, copy, paste in front. Let's fill that like this. I'm going to cut along this bottom edge here where I want my highlight to happen. And with this, I'm going to add my highlight. 2.5, and with this, I'm going to add my shadow. And remember, with the shadow, you probably want to multiply that and drop that opacity down a tad. With this, probably want to stroke this a little, say 1.5, a little thinner and a little less intense. Alright, so there you go. You start to really see, you know, picking up a highlight and a shadow to that effect. And you just keep repeating this for all the shapes that you want to have the same sort of effect applied to. try that again. So copy, paste. You can always move this over, see what you're doing. Remove that. Let's put this joke at 0.25. We'll clip it here and here. 0.15. And this one, we'll use the black. And a stroke. There we go. Now select both together, drag, and there you go. If you want this inside, you can just kind of move it over. You could have offset, actually at the beginning, offset it just a tad, and then you would have been inside of the shape a little better. But you can always just kind of tweak this afterwards. Alright, so there we go. Have that shape picked out. Okay, so now we kind of have this red leather that looks pretty flat. Let's go ahead and add a micro perf to that. And we're going to apply that micro perf to this material as well, since this is going to be a clear part that you're going to see through to that layer of synthetic. So let's go ahead and create our swatch of perf. So I have one already created here. Drag that over so you can take a look at it. But basically, let's just start from scratch. So start off with the circle, holding shift and option down. And I'm basically going to create a black fill and no outline. And maybe this, let's just make this, instead of pure black, let's go down to got like 70, 80 something percent. So we have, this is going to be our perf hole. Now I'm going to want to have a little bit of a highlight edge to this. So I'm going to click and drag with shift and option held down. Now I'm just going to go ahead and make copy paste in front to that, divide out, and save this and delete. So now I'm going to make this moon shape here. I'm going to make that a white, and let's make that kind of just about 80% transparent. And then I'll just copy paste this and hit R for rotate, and just kind of rotate this guy around just so it kind of gets up here. And I'm going to add a darker shadow to that side. And for both of these, you can add kind of a feathered edge if you like. I'm just going to pretty much leave it like this for now. Maybe going to make this just a tad bit darker. There we go. Just make sure that my black looks dark, and you can increase all the CMYK values. Alright, so I have my shape now. Here's the part, depending on how far apart you want your circles to be, so let's group that together. If you want these eventually to be pretty far apart, like let's say this distance, and then same thing, so that'll be your spacing. You want to make sure you create a box around this shape that's the correct size. So it takes a little bit of fine tuning, but let's go ahead and create a square. starting at the center, shift and option. And this is all going to determine how far apart your perf spacing happens. So if you think, if this is the center of my square and then I go ahead and tile this, that's going to be, there's my how far apart they're actually going to be. So now you want to make sure this has no value for your stroke or your fill. Select all of it, and then you can go ahead and drag it in to your swatches, and there it is, just popped up. So now select your shapes. I'm going to do it for all three of those shapes, the tongue, this synthetic, and the piece under here. I'm going to copy and then paste in front, so Apple C, Apple F. And now if I show you, there you go, I have those three forms. Now what I'm going to do is I'm just going to go ahead and combine those together, but the only ones I'm going to combine are these because I may want to change the direction of my perfs on the tongue. So I'll just combine these two together and then expand. And if you have any points like that, you can hit your negative, minus, subtract tool and take your A. You can basically just move that. It wouldn't have showed up anyways, but that's the way to fix it if you want to do that. So let's select both of these pieces and make sure we can take the stroke off, click on your fill, and let's, instead of the red fill with the gradient, let's fill it with our new perf pattern. So there you go. This is to scale. So the scale that you made it, this is what it comes out as. So now we're going to want to scale that down, obviously. So the same way we did our carbon fiber, we're going to do this. So my S, I'm going to hit S, and then I'm going to hold the squiggly serif tool with the shift at the same time. And I'm going to click and drag. Now I'm going to keep doing this till I get the right size of a perf. And I want this to be pretty tiny, just so it looks like that this material is micro perfed. So you kind of fine tune. Now with my R rotate tool and then the squiggly serif tool, I'm going to click and drag and get these perfs to happen on the angle that I want. Alright, now I'm going to click on one of these endpoints so it aligns with the corresponding point on the object. And what I'm going to do is, well, it's already done. So it's underneath my objects. So there you go. So now we have some perfs applied. The perfs look a little, you can kind of see if you select this and it'll show you what you were selecting. Perfs look a tad dark, so I'm just going to hit my tool here. If you hit the multiply, you're going to lose all the white highlight shapes. So you can also do it this way. There we go. Alright, so there's our shoe with some micro perfs and kind of rendered out tooling. And you can take this and delete that. And let's go ahead and change the color of our lining here. Let's just go to a nice black color. We can even go down here and select the black, add a thin stroke, and we'll just hit it with the gradient. And same for this. Alright, just for now. Okay, so there you go. You have your eyelet, you have your red synthetic upper, and your plate.